What up, you guys? Peek out here in Singapore, and it is 9:30. I'm about to go make pancakes, but before that, I wanted to jump on here because today's the last day of our 5-day class marathon that I've been doing with Wild Love Nation's Chantel Porter. She and I are actually friends. We've been friends for a couple of years now before she became Wild Love Nation, and I really love the movement that she's got going on because this is a conversation that not everybody wants to have, and it's not just kink and sex and all that stuff. It's actually a lot of the emotions that go behind it and how you can create a safe, respectful, trusting environment where you can actually ask and receive some of these different ideas about love, right? So if you're polyamorous, if you're part of a swinger couple, whatever the case may be, love is love, and I have no questions or concerns about that as long as there is a respect within the relationship itself. But part of what we're actually teaching is the fact that regardless of how you decide to identify yourself, regardless of how you choose to show love and affection, stuff like that, I think that there is a very basic need to be able to set rules and have make sure that the rules are kind of I don't want to say abided by, but followed because there is a mutual respect, right? So one of those big things is that once we say that we are exclusive, and once we accept that this is not, maybe this version of our love is not polyamorous, whatever, or even if you are polyamorous, there are rules by which you engage so it doesn't just become meaningless, in order for us to make sure that we have chosen a partner or lifestyle. Okay, so my understanding of that means that the more you talk to each other, the more you are in tune, the more intimacy you create, non-physical intimacy. Okay, let's be very clear about that. The more non-physical intimacy you create, the less chance there should be for infidelity, where you go outside of the relationship to look for something you're missing, right? And honestly, I'm not condoning infidelity. I'm not saying that it's okay and it's the other person's fault when someone looks outside. I think it's just as much the person who is violating the trust. It's their responsibility, as well as the person who has been trying to create a safe space, right? So both sides of that relationship, or all sides of it, depending on what kind of relationship you're in, right? All sides of it needs to feel safe enough to communicate, and the more you communicate, there should be no reason why you can't ask for what you feel like you're missing, right? If I don't tell somebody that I feel like something is missing from the relationship, then that's my fault. Now, if the other person doesn't hear it or doesn't respect it or doesn't do anything about it, that's different. But it is up to me to make sure that I am well heard. And that's what I'm going to say on that. I feel like if we were able to bring back the idea of speaking more to each other. I know there was a time where people said, what happens within these four walls, stay within these four walls. And yes, that was meant to be to protect yourself from other people's idea of how your love should be, and other people coming in to split y'all apart. But part of that also means that if you're not going to let other people in, that means y'all are talking to each other a lot. Y'all are communicating very, very effectively. But what happened on the flip side of the four walls theory, right, was that it condoned or allowed room for a lot of behavior that was not acceptable. If no one knows that you're treating your wife like an object and she's only allowed to stay within these four walls, she doesn't have any friends, she doesn't have anyone to talk to outside of you, like a prisoner situation, okay, that means that you are using it as a safety, like a shelter, to allow bad behavior. Okay, so I personally feel like you should have a boundary for within your house, and you also need to have some good friends that you can trust, which means that if you're acting up, if you're like flipping out over something that shouldn't be that big, they're able to bring you back down to ground and be like, okay, you know what, let's really think about this. How bad is it, right? Is it really as big a deal as you're making it out to be? Let's look at it objectively and see if we can't come to a consensus, because your friends are people that want the both of you to stay together. You know what I mean? You're champions, you're couple champions. Anyway, so part of the reason that we started this conversation is because a lot of people have questions. They don't know where to go and ask. A lot of people have like they feel a little timid about coming out of their shell and really exploring, excuse me, their identity and their sexuality. And it's been taboo for so long, so they're not even sure if they should feel guilty or they should feel like this is something completely natural, right? So we wanted to start that conversation, but in the time being, as we spoke more and more about this, it seemed to me like if I'm open and you're open, like we are in the beginning of a relationship, there's no chance for infidelity because I can't get enough of you and you can't get enough of me. We're still learning about each other, right? And the more I learn, the more I'm excited. So if that puppy love in the beginning means there's no chance for infidelity because I'm not going to look anywhere else, I can't get enough of you, then why can't we find a way to extend it so that it kind of covers the entirety of your relationship, right? I know people have bumps and bruises along the way. I know we have fights. I know we have, this clash of ideas and belief systems and stuff. But if there was a healthy way for you to work through those belief systems, why would there ever be a need for infidelity, right? If we work through attachment systems, if we work through past difficulties that you've experienced and you have a tendency to bring it into the new relationship because we all do, right? If we're able to work through those things, why can't the honeymoon phase, so to speak, last forever? Why couldn't it? At least that's my theory. So I would love to hear your quote questions, comments, concerns. If you're totally violated by this whole conversation, please let me know because I want to know. I really believe that if I could get to a place where I can always tell you what's going on and I can always, talk about money, right? And you don't get offended, so we can really dig deep and collaborate on whatever we got going on in our relationship, then why couldn't I always feel close to you, right? I believe that it's one of those moments where maybe I ask you for something and you deny me, but there's no explanation, there's no logical anything, and I feel hurt, and the next time I have a chance to ask you for help, I think twice. You hear what I'm saying? So it kind of like we start to hold ourselves back little by little in that regard, and then the intimacy is lost, and then yes, of course we feel like we're not safe in the relationship. We don't feel like someone isn't there to listen to us. You never listen, you don't take me into account. It feels like we're at odds with each other at all times. It feels like you're the enemy instead of you're my best friend, my go-to, my ride or die, and I can come to you with anything because you love me and I love you, and I know that beyond the shadow of a doubt. But once we start holding ourselves back, we start questioning whether we love each other very much or not. We've been together forever, and you still don't know that I need these things when I'm sick. We've had this situation over and over again, but you always do the same old thing. When we make those blanket statements, it's kind of like the toll of death for a relationship because we stop listening at that point. We start only focusing on ourselves. Where we wanted to anticipate for the other person, we find that the other person is against us. And we want to close off and not be there for the other person as well. So it kind of starts a cycle. You stop being there for me, so I'm going to stop being there for you. And then suddenly there's like a herd of elephants in the room and we can't see each other, let alone talk to each other and understand each other. So this is my idea. This is what I feel like is really important in a relationship. And that's part of the reason we're having this Wild Love Nation collaboration with Rasati to be able to have those conversations, give y'all a little bit of hope, and get y'all working back towards being together, like actually together. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, please, by all means, drop your questions, comments. Let me know what you think because this is important to me. All right. This is really important. I've seen so many failed relationships around me, and not to mention I've been in a couple myself, and I wish it didn't end the way it did because the way it started out seemed so promising. And obviously, I had a part to play in that. He had a part to play in that. But what if we could have worked together on those things? We'd still be together, right? Not saying that I want them back, okay? Don't get me wrong. I learned what I had to learn. But the point being, the next relationship, I want to last forever. I still want that Cinderella fairy tale, happily ever after. And I know what that means. It's not necessarily happily ever after. But the point being that we're still working toward the same goals. We still have each other in mind when we make decisions. That's what I want. You hear? All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you again soon. Bye.